Welcome back. Today is yet another one. I have Amy. She is such a lovely soul, but I don't know the word I'm looking for. I am looking for, the word is more like this. I'll get the word. But do you know like a powerhouse, but in a very soft era of it? So powerful, yet so in surrender. And so I love this expert, and this is one of those people with decades of experience. So school of hard knocks, sweat, tears, frustrations, trying endless things, failures that we have not seen. But she is one of those people that when I look at her work, I can tell that she is altering lives. And so such guests, when I bring them on, I don't bother with their bio. Because if I try to read for you Amy's bio, we would sleep here. But decades of experience, decades of failure is what we have here. Someone that has been through the mud and is on the other side. And today, we're going to do an interview where we just dive into her work, and I'm going to lead you into what she does, how she does it, and why this is such a crucial time for you to discover Amy. But the way that I'd like to dive into this is really just her telling us, because I have a lot of assumptions in my head and I don't want those assumptions to get ahead of myself. And so, yes, before we dive into Amy's work, the most important thing that you can do for this podcast is think in your life after watching this, or whenever you try to drop off, who is the person that in the hands, this episode, if you place it in their hands, they would alter their life. Not 100 people, not 70, one person. Like, who's this person that is dear to you that is playing small right now? Who is the person in your life that you know has the greatest potential, is a big deal, big leader, people depend on them, but they have like a next level to unlock? Who do you want to bless with the gift of expansion? There is always a level after every level. And so at some point we reach a level and we're like, okay, is there anything next? And so if you're there, like, I want to look at Amy's work as what's next? What's the next evolution of you? And so before you drop off, at whatever point you decide to drop off, that is the biggest thing that you can do for me, other than making sure that you're subscribed. Because you subscribing, you following, you rating, that is how this platform grows. All right, Amy, welcome to the podcast. It's my honor to really have you today.
Prima, thank you so much. I too am humbled and grateful, with nothing beyond abundant appreciation for not only being here in your presence, but for the work that you do and the profound nature of seeing humanity in the level that it's supposed to be. And I truly am touched and blessed to have crossed paths and excited to be here.
Thank you so much. I think this is one of those guests who's going to make you tear, who's going to give you shivers. So pull your stool, pull your mat, whatever the thing is, pull your tea and be ready. I feel this message in my bone marrow. I don't know why, but I do. Amy, tell us what you do so that the listener can go, is this message for me or is it not for me?
Absolutely. My true purpose in this entire existence is to empower individuals to unlock their infinite potential and align with their divine purpose to achieve three beautiful, usually overlooked and undervalued elements of true freedom, flow, and fulfillment in not only their personal lives, but their professional lives and the legacy that they create in their existence.
What have you found to be the reason why people keep themselves small? The reason why people don't rise to their best? Like, what have you discovered to be the thing that really keeps us married to a very small version of us?
Ooh, that's powerful. That's exactly why I do what I do every day. Let me tell you, I truly believe that through programming,
Mm.
conditioning, and the experiences of life, we get removed. We create space and we lose touch with those very powerful spaces of our potential that we have no idea the capacity of. And so, in our routines and in underutilizing our potential, which is exactly what you spoke of, hitting those glass ceilings, struggling to find meaning and alignment and connection to what people wake up to do every day, is why we live in the spaces that we live in, where we feel limited, and that containers remove us from how we could truly be embracing the essence of this earthly experience.
I know that your audience is a little bit of layers. So you have like a primary, you have
Mhm.
a secondary, and you have a tertiary. I would like for us to be clear, like, who is it that we want this message to be for? And you're welcome to take us to the layers of the audiences, because I think it's very important.
Absolutely. And I totally appreciate that. I have, as Prima has shared with you, been in the work for so many years. And so I have a very multifaceted audience. I work in the mental, emotional, physical, and social sciences that we all encapsulate. And so my youngest clients have been as young as the age of 7. And the reason why is because they get into a point that they understand themselves and they gain a responsibility where they can make choices. So I go into emotional awareness and their ability to not necessarily be contained in what society wants them to learn, but yet what their capacity is and how to really truly embody that even at such a young age, because we are souls and energy far beyond our physical existence. And so really allowing them to take that to new levels. So I do children, I do teenagers, all the way up. And then usually my next gap is going to be the individuals that are entrepreneurs, those that are outside of the employee box, those that feel something so much more than simply going to a job and showing up to be paid, and settling for that expectation of, okay, I've got bills to pay and this is how I do it. Those individuals that in their heart and in their soul know that there's something bigger in their purpose, know that there's something and so much more there. And everybody's got it, but not everybody is willing to unleash it while they're here. And so that is imperative. And I go into their discovery and their alignment of who they are and what that passion is, and then assure that their brand and how they show up in their service and their whatever it is that they do is authentic to who they are. Because we can all create a new business and have a great idea, but if it's not authentically aligned to who we are, it will be very short-lived. And the people that I work with are all about sustainable success. And so in that, the authenticity being aligned with them offers generational legacies to be created. And then last and foremost, working with those, and this is my kind of my topic right now in my campaign currently, is that top 3% of the general public. Those individuals that have had success, those individuals that have been in these leadership roles to manage and lead and guide others and have lost themselves, in that desire for success, the robotic moves of checking the boxes and satisfying the expectations, the external overwhelm and bombardment of more information and more this and more that. And in all of that, removed again from their authentic purpose, who they are, what they're to be doing so that they feel true fulfillment, not simply a bonus at the end of a quarter and then look in the mirror and go, who is this? Who am I even looking at anymore?
I love your three audiences. I know which one was ringing bells in my heart, but I need to ask you the question, who of
Please.
those three is closest to your soul? Because one of them was ringing a bell for me.
Absolutely. So I have 8 beautiful children of my own. So children will always hold a very special place. And I love my executives. I love my top-notch individuals. But I have to say, our future is imperative.
Mm.
And I believe that they are overlooked and underappreciated for what they hold in this powerful space. And as leaders in the executive world, I love working with them, but they've had their chances. And the reason why I work with them is to make space for those future leaders to come up into, because children and youth that are given a capacity on a larger level than they've ever been given before will require leaders that know how to accept somebody of that bandwidth, because otherwise those leaders will be shunned, they'll be offended, they'll be threatened, they'll have all of that. And so really that's why I have the triangle that I do, because there is importance in each level of holding that space in order for humanity to be impacted properly. Because if we don't have them there, I'm going to create an amazing movement and they'll have nowhere to go. They'll have nowhere to be held and to be built up and recognized. And so it's another reason why I work with entrepreneurs, because small businesses are very essential in the freedoms that we hold. And so there's a magic behind the triangle. There's a reason why all three exist.
I see the triangle. I really see where you're going with this. Wow. 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 I have like follow-up questions for the things you said, but I wonder if I want to dive into the Amy that didn't have this stuff figured out, the Amy that had programming, the Amy that society bent down, the Amy that was burnt out, the Amy that didn't know her values, that was detached. I wonder if we could get into that Amy, because the Amy today, I don't know how much we relate to that Amy, but I know there is an Amy who is where we are, and I wonder if we could visit her and kind of let us kind of get that tissue to connect with, because sometimes these things seem far-fetched, if it makes sense.
Amen. And let me tell you, at 49 years old, I can absolutely tell you the Amy I am today is not the Amy that started. Yes, my soul is the same. My love and my purpose is the same, but the journey that I have had to take to get to this space, to be in my truest form of consciousness, is immense. And there is many jokes, as I shared with you prior to our podcast, that writing one book would never suffice, that I would need to have my own Harry Potter series. I would need to have the 12 and 13 books of different portions of my life that have brought me to where I am. But in the very, very beginning, I was the third daughter of 10 beautiful children, and my parents were magical and magnificent and did the very best that they knew how in the late 70s and early 80s, raising such a large family with many, many needs. My father was an elementary school teacher, and so we did not have abundance in finances. The abundance that was available was love and music and service. And those were the three things that I can tell you were the main veins running through me. But in that, losing myself to understanding that those things were not to take priority over me, as I was taught that they came first. And in the very religious home that I was raised in, I was raised that if you check the boxes and you do all of these things, life will be perfect. I can stand in my own story and share that the gospel by Amy is not that case. And that the pain and torment of being in the service of others prior to this service of my own self can be very lonely and very abusive. I absolutely love the things that I learned and the work ethic. And I mean, there's so many things that I take away from my childhood, but I too, because we were in service of others all of the time, there was a lot of eyes that were not open big. And there was child abuse and as a child. And so again, that loneliness and self-worth or lack thereof, and always seeking for many, many years the approval of others, and knowing if I'm serving, that I'm doing okay. I'm doing what my creator would have me do. I'll be blessed for this. Eventually something will happen in my favor, and wishing and wanting for that for many, many years, and getting lost in being the third oldest of 10, being responsible for all of my siblings to raise them. But what about Amy? What about Amy's needs? What about Amy's desires? I didn't have much of a childhood because of that. And I don't sit in that by any means as a negative. As I have grown and done my own inner journey, I actually welcome those things and get very, very excited into the insight and the understanding of not only my own interpretation, but to those that were those caregivers, and not in judgment, but in love and understanding, and holding the space for them as to where they were and what their intentions were. So in that, then as I got to be a young mom, I joined I was in the military, United States Air Force, and served there very proudly for 7 years, and loved what I did. I worked in the medical field and was able to prepare and receive the troops that were leaving for overseas to fight for our freedom and coming home. And in that, I learned some very hard and critical things about life, about the human body, and about the tender and fragileness of it. I got to see people that had their last breaths, that were dismembered, that didn't get to see their family. And I, in triage, got to carry those stories, sometimes forever, because I had nobody to share them with. And so I got to go through that phase of being a young mom, raising young children, and get to carry that responsibility. But I did it in total pride and honor. I still work very closely with my veteran and active duty brothers and sisters, as well as first responders, because I understand. I understand the trauma. I understand the pain. I understand the responsibility and the honor of what true freedom really means on a level that most don't. And then 18 years into this beautiful marriage that too was very religiously guided, looked in the mirror one day and said, I don't know who that person is. Who is this woman that has 8 beautiful children, that is married to an individual that doesn't know who she is, who silences her, who takes her light away and keeps her in this container that to the rest of the world, we look like the perfect marriage. To the outside world is magnificent. And we have all of this stuff. We have a boat, we have timeshares, we have, beautiful cars and motorcycles and all this fun stuff with 8 beautiful children. Wow, is that kind of life even possible? But yet behind closed doors, when you look in the mirror and nothing but tears fall, That's not a place to be. There's no success in that.
Mm.
And so that was my beginning of my personal development journey. I'd done personal development for years in all of the roles that I held in the military. I left the military and hold top executive roles in corporate America. I owned my own businesses during that time. I nailed it. There wasn't anything I couldn't do, Prima. I was unstoppable. I let the rest of the world know, give me something to do and I will do it, and tell me I can't do it and I'll do it even better. Because I had those capabilities, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't Amy that I am now. And so after my divorce, my youngest was 5 at the time and my oldest was 18. I had to find myself all over again. And I won't call it recreation because my creation was already complete. I simply came to consciousness for what was already deep inside of me. I just simply had crusts, layers and layers of crusts and programming and conditioning and experiences and fear and all of those emotions that stack up, and simply didn't know what to do with all of it. And so it was my turn now to reframe, my turn to grab these beautiful situations and pictures that I couldn't change the picture, but I could sure change the frame that it was posted on inside the walls of my memories. And that is what brought me to here. That is what inspired me to create the ecosystem that I did through years, 6 full years of trainings and certifications and programs and coaches and all kinds of things to the tune of 6 figures, because I didn't know how else to do it, grabbing at straws and puzzle pieces and amazing things that I'm like, ooh, that one resonates and ooh, that resonates. But there wasn't one space. There wasn't one place that grabbed Amy and said, this is it. And so I had to create what my heart had desired for all of those years, and now make that space available to those that are feeling some of the same feelings, that loss, that disconnection, that lack of self-worth, that feeling of why all of this? There's something bigger, there's something better than all of this.
Keep going, Amy. I want the person who is listening to go, that's me. I was liking the list that was going on, this and this and this. Give us a playlist so we can kind of go, oh gosh, this is so for me. Who needs to kind of tune in? What is happening in their life? What are the visible signs that this is going to be the thing that's going to open your eyes for your next level? I was loving that list as you went.
You got it. Absolutely. So first and foremost, who's unseen? Who shows up every day for everybody else? And then goes, okay, well, who cares about me? We normally don't do that. If we're that kind of person, we're going to show up and love the world, but there's still that ache of, when do I get loved? When do I get celebrated? When do I get acknowledged for the person that I show up so naturally? And then to understand that in that then goes the doubt of self-worth. But wait a minute, I know where I came from. I have these beliefs. People tell me that I'm great and wonderful, but yet when I have a need, it's absent. I'm alone. I feel debilitated and numb in autopilot. Where is the quality of life? Where is it that I get to be celebrated and seen on a level that none of these inner dialogues in my head matter? Because most times we will show up and give and give and give, and even learn to give on a level of abnormality, unnaturalness, because we want it so bad. And then we compromise our values. We give away our truth. Our integrity is compromised. and things start getting foggy. We lose that clarity and that touch of who we are. And we go back and go, but wait a minute, I did so great here, or I did so wonderful then, or I had this magnificent family. How did I lose it? How did I lose that most amazing relationship that that person was everything I needed? But because of me and my choices, I wasn't connected. And that generational cycle of these wonderful or horrifying stories of your generation, and you go, why can't I shake this? Why can't I be bigger or better than what's happened by my family that came before me? And there's a lot of questions internally. And because of that, we're seeking external validation instead of coming inward. And that is where the disconnection comes.
Wow. Okay.
Is where this comes.
Okay. So I have a phrase for Amy's work. You are magnificent in other people's lives, but yours.
Yes.
And that's killing you. And you are doing it to a level where you are killing yourself because you believe this is gonna fill a hole inside you. And so you keep doing more and doing more and doing more. And every time you do more, you feel like you're killing yourself. And when you look in the mirror, you're like, I don't like this.
So removing the doing, removing the external approval and acceptance, and then jumping into me, jumping into what I've done and going into being. Doing is important in retraining the subconscious and creating new behaviors and habits. Doing is absolutely essential. But in doing, we lose ourselves if it's the only element. So if we don't go into the inward journey and recognize who we are, what our capabilities truly are, and become a powerhouse in being, then we overfill our cup because of our connections and our connection to our higher power and our understanding of the capacity of what we can plug into. And then we don't have to do, we simply be in overflow. And it's that overflow that serves. It's that overflow that leads and gives. And we don't have to deplete our own supply. So it's reprioritizing. You still get to be that magnificent individual. You still get to love and pour into people and serve others and show up magnificently. But you do it from your overflow instead of on empty, on fumes, because you're not connected to the source. You're not connected to your infinite potential and power that is inside of you. Because as humans, what many of us unfortunately get programmed is that in our humanness, it's almost a demise. It's a negative. Oh, I'm so human today. It's a negative. But what we forget is that our humanness is the greatest form, the highest form of creation on the earth. Everything else that exists, the rocks, the trees, the grass, the plants, the flowers, the animals, every capacity has a life cycle. They're born and they die. They live in survival until they get there. But as human beings, we have an ability, we have mental capacities that nothing else holds, that when we can learn about what those are, it really unleashes a lot of what our potential is, because we get to change whatever we don't like. I'm going to say that again. We get to change whatever we don't like.
Hold up there. Hold up there, Amy. I want to take you back to your marriage of 8 kids.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want you to bring the Amy today and place her in that marriage,
Mm.
what would have been different in that marriage if the Amy today was the Amy that was there? Because I think
Mm.
you would have done things differently then.
I absolutely know I would have done things differently.
Mm,
Life would have been extremely different if I
mm,
would have given permission to my voice like I do today back then.
mm. Because right now there is someone in their marriage going, I don't know who I am. I don't know how I spent the last 30 years of my life. I don't even know what my values are. I don't even know what I want in life. I got married, I bought a car, I got a job, I did all these things because it was supposed to be success. But
Oh,
now that I look in the mirror, I don't know that this is success. All I feel inside is not success. And people
mm,
might be saluting for me, and the plane might be outside waiting for me, and I might be married to Mr. Bombastic, but the woman in the
mhm.
mirror, that's not success. And they're in that dark moment where they're like, what next? And so I
Oh,
want you to sit there
yes.
with them and give them something to touch. How to flame that, how to even believe that it's possible to change that, and how to not die from it, because it looks like you have to die before. They don't really know, like, how do I get myself out of this mess? Remember, the whole world is celebrating you and clapping, and you're supposed to be Mrs. Bombastic, and you're supposed to smile and look nice, and they're probably used to smiling, that they're probably the best at faking it. But like, where do they start to go, it's okay to be human.
Mm,
It's okay
mm.
not to have it all figured out. And it is okay to start from day one and ask for help. Like, it's totally okay. But this woman or man or whatever the person is, that's far from reach for them.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. And you know what's amazing is we're the ones who remove ourselves. We're the ones who feel so far, and it's really not. It's a
mm,
simple decision of I matter. And
mm,
in I mattering, like you said, asking if you're not able to do it yourself, find someone who has what you so desire. Find someone who understands you and sees you and get their help. And listen, when you find that someone, it's not somebody who's going to do the work for you.
mm,
This is about you doing your work and finding someone as a coach or a mentor or whatever the case be that is willing to walk alongside you and to help you to unleash the things that are inside of you. Because if they do the work, then when they leave, it's no different than the partner that you don't know who's sitting in the bed with you.
mm,
Because you've got to learn to understand how to do the work so that when these beliefs surface again and these doubts and these separations of, sure, I can go show up outside in the outside world, but how in the world do I really feel that way? So I love what you said, Prima, about almost dying in the
mm,
space that you're in.
mm,
Metamorphose Institute is my company, my
mm,
ecosystem. And in metamorphosis, what a lot of individuals don't understand is the caterpillar does not turn into a butterfly.
mm,
Despite popular belief, the caterpillar and the butterfly are two completely different beings.
mm,
Scientifically, it is proven that the caterpillar has to completely die inside of the cocoon, and the remaining material that is there is where the butterfly is birthed from.
mm,
It is not a caterpillar with wings, guys. So, yes, we do have to go through a form of death to
mm,
make room for the next greatest version of ourselves. Because think of it like a grocery store. You go to the grocery store and you're carrying bags and bags of groceries of all of this stuff that everybody has said you needed: a job, a car, a
mm,
partner, a home, all of this magnificence, right? And your arms are full. how are you going to pick up something new? How are you going to add the right things that are going to give you true fulfillment and excitement and passion and drive and love and happiness and joy if your arms are already full? Those things are all great, but if you don't have it holding on to them, you've got to make room. So we've got to be able to come to an acceptance of these are the things that don't serve me anymore. Where do I start, like you asked? How do I give myself permission to matter? And that's where we begin, is personal discovery. We, at least in my ecosystem, I go into personal discovery. That's the first step. I ask questions and understand and listen to where this individual is and what has brought them to the current state that they're in. And we go into personal discovery and understand that sometimes not only is it the conditioning and the programming and the experiences, but sometimes there's generational pressures that we carry that we don't even understand, because our DNA scientifically is proven that it carries 11 generations of people that we don't know. And so sometimes, no matter how much personal work you do on your own, you're like, well, I've done the work and I'm doing this, but there's still these barriers, these sabotages that continue to happen over and over. That's when you've got to plug into those similar to I that are trained and certified in those methodologies so that we can help to release these limitations, help to release these beliefs and these programmings that are in there and replace them with the empowering ones that get you to where you want to be. But the beauty in what I do, Prima, which is so different than many of the other ecosystems that are there, is that when you do the work with me, it's not about more. It's not about new systems. It's not about bigger systems. It's about simplification of the chaos, of the darkness, of the too muchness, of the bombardment. What we do in this space is focus on the simple truths and the profound nature of our creation. And when we bring it back to simple, the elephant leaves your chest. You can breathe in. You can see through the storm. You become the storm because of the power that you grab onto. And the rain can come and the clouds can come. And guess what? You stand up stronger than you ever have before, because you've now found your belief in yourself. You know why you're here and what your purpose is. And you also know, based on the stories that you've experienced in your life, the people who you can now shorten their path and give back based on the fact that you are the strong individual that you have now tapped into. And what's even more beautiful is when you do your own inner work, it heals relationships that are meant to be there. If there are people that are toxic, it's not going to heal that one. Sorry to tell you, that's probably something you'll have to release and let go of. However, in that truth, the confidence that you have, it's very clear as to the steps that are necessary to take to get to those next evolutions like you spoke of.
So Amy, I want to take you back to the woman in the mirror. The Amy that said, I have 8 kids and I have no idea what my name is and what I want and what my values are, and I could have no clue. She's staring, she's in the dark. She's probably built all the cars, married the man, whatever the man was on paper, have the kids, have the toys, whatever the thing is she thought she was supposed to get. And she's like, all right, I have no idea how I got here, but I certainly don't want to stay here. I was wondering if we could break this down a little bit more, because I know there is personal discovery and then there is releasing stuff that doesn't serve you in that moment. But if we were to break it down for this woman, if this conversation is the only conversation this woman ever had from us, and they were supposed to take this and change their lives, how can we simplify it for them into bits that are chewable, that she can stand in a place of, oh, I could do that? And then the choice for whether to reach out for more or not is in her hands. But even if she did not, now we have planted a very good plan for her in her head of what she needs to do to turn her life around.
Absolutely. So the first question I would propose to that beautiful queen is, you're standing here. You're looking in the mirror, even though you may feel as if you are empty and simply a container going through this physical container, going through the motions. You are here. So if you are physically still here staring in the mirror, I would encourage you to tap into that tiny little spark that's still deep inside of you, that even if you don't know what it is the reason that you get up every morning. It's the reason why you are physically still in existence, because simply because you've forgotten your power and your purpose doesn't mean that it's there, not there. It doesn't mean that everything that you have gone through is for naught. And so what I would simply say to you is, go to that last memory that you felt joy, that you felt love authentically, not simply because somebody said it was that, but when you felt that last love, that last emotion, even if it took you all the way back to your childhood, grab on to what that moment is, that spark that you felt ignited and connected to something bigger than you. And that's where we start. We go into that moment and we remember the feelings. We remember the experience, not so much the people that are in the room, but how did you feel in that moment? And then from there, how do we bring that back to now? What is it that we can do in this moment, even quietly and privately in yourself? What can we do to bring that back to now? Was there a statement that was said? Was there a specific activity that was happening in that moment? What was it that ignited that feeling? Because what happens in our subconscious is that we remember images. And when we remember the images, the deepest images have emotions attached to them and feelings attached to them. So even if it's been buried under years of crust and depth, if we can recover that and bring it back up, it's almost like a volcano with lava. Once we allow that to erupt again, now it's closer to the forefront and the familiar, and our brain's going to start focusing on that because you've given it permission to come first before all of what's happening in your surrounding space externally. So that's your first spark of bringing back you and who you are. And if you don't find it for the first time, walk away and come back to the mirror again and sit and look in that mirror and wait until you find that one moment. Find 2 moments, find 3 moments, and continue stacking on what it is that takes you into that truly ignited space that allows you to tinkle inside and activate the amazingness that at one point existed for you.
Okay, so I need to go back in my life memory and kind of find who was the prima that wasn't in this state, who was the prima that had dreams, who was that prima that felt like I got this and didn't like, who was that most authentic prima that you remember, and how can we try and bring that back in whatever the version of you is right now? Okay,
Yeah.
I can see how that can start to bring me back. So take me to the point where I don't know what my values are. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know anything about me. What questions can I begin to ask myself in the personal discovery time so that I can begin to be clear who I
Yes.
am, besides the kids, besides the husband, besides the cars, besides all these things people call. I have seen women being called someone's mom, and I'm like, really? Like, you're now like someone's mom? And I'm like, no. Like I don't want to be called someone's mom when I have a child. I'd be like, please don't not call me someone's
Yeah.
mom, because that
Exactly.
guy's there. Like, okay, now I'm beginning to get some sensation. Like, okay, if I could walk in the wilderness again, if I could whatever the thing is, this prima
Right.
will start to come back. But I still don't know, like, who am I? I am still probably living in the skin of whatever society told me to be. And so,
Right.
how do I find the prima that has no masks? What are some of the questions I can begin to write down for me to discover who I am?
Absolutely. So we can go over some of those very powerful questions. And what we'll do is start there. But many, many times, if we've gotten ourselves into this space, it's essential for us to encircle ourselves with other individuals that are also going through this process or have gone through it. Because if we've gotten ourselves there and the environment we're in is toxic or not allowing us to thrive on that level, trying to do it on our own can sometimes be very defeating. And so making sure again that you're plugging into a coach or plugging into an accountability partner or somebody that understands who you are, who you feel seen by, who you feel listens to you, who you feel celebrates you on the level that you deserve to be celebrated by, whatever that may be, whether it's a community, whether it's, like I said, an accountability partner, whether it's a coach. You want to make sure you're surrounding yourself by that individual in this process to support that. But some of the things that you can ask yourself is, first, what are the things that are happening that I don't like? But in that, then going to if I don't like it, what is the 180-degree polar opposite of that? So I don't like the fact that I have 10 extra pounds on that I can't seem to shake. Okay, well, what's the opposite? Motion, activity. Okay. So if I don't like where I'm at here, then do I plug in a walk in my day? Do I plug in something that allows me to emotionally express, some of these emotions that are bound up that I have no way to get rid of? How, like we talked about, when you find that moment, that spark inside of you, what small actionable steps can I take today to bring that back into my now? Is it an activity? Is it a word that I need to say in the mirror to remind myself of how I felt in that moment? Is it an affirmation? Is it something that I need to be able to visualize to help reprogram my subconscious to go back into that thriving feeling? What is my passions? What do I love about life? What do I get excited about? And when's the last time that I touched that? So when we ask ourselves, well, wait a minute, the last time that I wrote poetry was, when I was 10 years old. Okay, well, what does poetry do for me? If that ignites my feeling and allows me to process things, then that might be where I want to go to. Or, what self-doubts do I catch in my mind? I hear myself go, I hate how I feel when I wear those pants. Well, then why do you keep wearing those pants? You've got to, when you hear those doubts, your awareness of the fact that those are going on in your mind is imperative, because how do you feel when those words cross your mind? Or when a certain person comes in the room that you feel very tight, intense, like you don't want to breathe, then why are you allowing that person into your experience? So personal awareness is going to be a necessary part of this, because when we understand what we don't want, those are the things that have to be removed. And if we hear, things in our head that make us feel gross, then go to the opposite of that and offer the opposite of that. And usually the smallest shift will make the most significant difference. The one little thing that all of a sudden Prima looks in the mirror one morning and goes, Queen, you are stunning. I love you. You are intelligent. You are powerful. You are creative, and you are the architect of your life.
I really like this. I like these steps. I like these steps. What do I like? What don't I like? How can I move away from the things I actually don't like? Because I just don't like it. And it doesn't matter what. Everyone thinks pizza is amazing. Cake is amazing. I just don't like them. So I don't take it.
So don't do it. Exactly.
Everyone thinks meat is amazing, but I'm like, no, I'm not interested. So how can you begin to unapologetically just walk away? Take the steps towards the things that actually give you joy. I love that. What are the passions? What are the things that actually you used to enjoy? Maybe you used to enjoy climbing the mountain. You used to enjoy the wilderness. You used to enjoy a glass of wine like I do. I don't know. What are the things that you used to enjoy before everybody got you entangled in everything?
Yes.
Then listening to your feelings. Like, how do you feel about people in your life and the things you're doing? And how can you eliminate the things that don't feel good? I think it's not an easy thing to do, but it is very, very helpful. Being aware of, for me, it's more like an energy. Like some people just bring an energy that makes me contract or unsafe. And I'm like, okay, my body is telling me this person, no. And so for me, it's more like an energy. Like my body goes, mm-mm. And it's funny because, yeah.
That's another whole podcast, darling. We can't open that door. That's another whole podcast of energy and vibration. But yes, you're right on the right path.
Yeah. It's funny because every time I feel like that on someone, I might allow them to become a guest. But what will happen is then they'll go back and decide they're not a fit. Sometimes I'll look in the calendar and I'll go, I don't know that this person is a fit. But then they've already scheduled, they've been waiting for their call. And I'll be like, no, take it. I'll hear them out. They come in the room and I'm like, they're not a fit. And then they convince me and they explain. I'm like, all right, I'll give you a chance. And I kid you not, every time they go back, they send me a message and they're like, you're right, I'm not a fit. Oh, I see them in the calendar. They're coming in. I'm like, yeah, here we go again. And just before the call, I get an email. I'm sorry, Prima, but I don't know that I'm a fit at this point. And I'm like, okay. So, Amy, where do I want to take this? There is a point where people are stuck in guilt, shame. I am not enough, whatever. And there is a beautiful story that I want to share here. And that's a story I heard from Sarah Robert Jakes. I don't know if any of the listeners know her, but she's T.D. Jakes' daughter. And so she was sharing her story and she was saying, this is why I struggled so much to embrace my true authenticity and step into my calling. I was a teenage mom. I was T.D. Jakes' daughter. So like a daughter of the most popular religious, church person. And so as a teen, she felt like she had failed. And then she gets married, and at 25, she gets a divorce. And she's like, okay, there's nothing left to save here. She now starts working in a strip club. I don't know if she was the stripper or anything, but she's like, I do a lot of things in that time to just tell myself that I'm not worthy. And when I decided to do this personal development work, what I decided to do, and she was telling this story, is I decided that I was going to change myself. I was going to create someone new. I was going to go get the degrees. I was going to go do this. So she tried to bury the past so she can create the future. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to prove to everyone that I am this or whatever. And she was like, the teenage mom, I'm going to bury her and show her that I can be successful. And then this divorced mom, I'm going to bury her. And the more she tried, the more she couldn't do it. And then she said, one day, it appeared to me that every one of those things is like a spice. And what I did is I brought the teenage man, put in the cupboard. I brought the divorced mom, put in the cupboard. I got all these things and put them and shelved them up. And I said, these are my spices. And from today onwards, I am going to use them to make a 5-star course meal.
Amen.
And
Amen.
she said that was the moment when she could do it, because she could bring all of her dirty or not worthy or whatever the part was, she allowed that part to be in her future as something she could use. And so the question I'm using for this story is, what is your way of encouraging the listener to just know that whatever the thing happened to them can be used in their next self? Like, we don't have to pretend we didn't do that thing. And you don't have to be the Amy that wasn't divorced. And you don't have to be the Amy that didn't have 8 kids. And you didn't have to be any different. Like, all of this is really needed or necessary, or we can bring it. I don't know. What is the way you can explain to people who are stuck in, yeah, but I was that thing, so I can't be this thing. I was that thing, but what is the way of saying you can be this and this and this and this, and that's totally okay, because it's called being a human being.
Oh, amen and amen. I absolutely love it. I love how you explained that. So the beauty in what we do, again, is to acknowledge all of your amazingness, to acknowledge the experiences that you've gone through. What lessons did you learn from them that you can take away from them? Where I talked about putting a new frame on an old picture, being able to take that space and utilize the lesson from it to then elevate who you are, because your past does not define you. Your past does not limit you. Your past should elevate you. So if you think of a castle, you think of a fortress, an amazing fortress that protects this phenomenal spirit that sits inside of your body, this energy, this divine connection to something so much bigger than this physical existence. And you've got this fortress. Usually they are several heights high, and you see a brick in each and every one of those spaces. Well, those bricks had to come from somewhere. There has to be a solid foundation that allows us to rise up a little bit higher. But instead of those bricks being carried by us on our shoulders, because we go, oh, I'm that divorced mom, I'm that young mom, I am a failure, I lost my company, I had to file bankruptcy, my mother died, my best friend, no longer talks to me. Instead of carrying all those bricks on our shoulders and our heart and our chest, what if we just put them under our feet? So that we can see that next brightest horizon, so that we can get closer to that next peak on a mountain. Instead of carrying it all, let's take the lesson we're supposed to from it and put it underneath us and lift us up into these greater spaces and see and feel that next greatest version of ourselves. because it's amazing when you think of a hot air balloon, they have sandbags that are on them that keep them on the ground. And you can take off 9 of the 12 hot air sandbags, and that hot air balloon still isn't going to take off. It's going to drag, 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 drag. And you'll get to have the balloon above you, and you get to go, okay, well, I'm flying, but I'm not. But until we drop those sandbags off, then we can soar. And so, what I will encourage each and every listener to do is to not reject all of your stories, but to welcome them in. Welcome them in on a new level. Instead of resisting them, allow them space and appreciate them and show gratitude to them for what you learned from it, because without that experience, you could not have the knowledge and wisdom that you've gained from it, nor will you be able to help those that have experienced similar things and be able to now shorten their path.
I like
passed
that.
49 years. I don't want anybody to have to wait as long as I did. I don't want anybody to have to do all of those loopholes and dead ends and U-turns and extra spaces in that path that I didn't have the proper map in place. So that's the joy and the expertise of what I have gone through to be so blessed to shorten the journey of those that will be coming into my space and crossing paths with me, so that I can empower them in their own inner journey to be able to become the next greatest version of who they are. And all of those versions are imperative to get to that point. But let's keep going in expansion. Let's keep searching and seeking and finding, because I too am a student of life. Every day I continue studying and mastering myself, because I'm not meant to go backwards. I seek to be a little bit better than I was yesterday. And in our existence, our soul screams for fuller expression and expansion every day. It's not meant to go in reverse. So I'm here to ignite that journey for others.
Wow, Amy, this has been powerful. What is the one thing that we haven't touched that you know is so crucial when it comes to creating a life of vitality, passion, and freedom? What is that thing that you keep saying, Prima? Why haven't we touched this? It is so important. What would that be?
That one thing is being. I'm going to go right back to it. The most powerful sentence in this human existence is I am. Period. It doesn't need a description. It doesn't need extra words to explain it. It doesn't need a PhD dissertation behind it. When we show up and look in the mirror and say, I am, we give ourselves permission to be in our most divine, authentic self. And when we show up and say, I am worthy, I am powerful, I am divine, then everything else that happens, we come to an understanding that it's meant to happen, that we don't have to work for it. We don't have to kill ourselves to achieve it. We don't have to give away all of our values and who we are to get to some magical destination. We simply have to be. And so in my space, I have something, the F3 being, which is freedom, flow, and fulfillment. When we live in our greatest selves, we are freer than we've ever been, because we're not attached. We're not attached to external things. We're not attached to what people think of us. We're not attached to our experiences. We're not attached to our past. All of that exists for its importance, but it does not define who we are. And then in fulfillment, when we find that driver that gets us so excited and we get attached to that passion and that purpose, fulfillment is easy because it's aligned to us. That's what we're vibrating. That's what we're attracting. But then to get into flow It's a matter of embodying effortless living. Again, not the 80-hour work weeks, not the, if I check all these boxes of this expectation that my religion says, if I do all of these things, or that my spouse tells me, if I do all of this for them, then I get in this flow. No, flow is organic and natural.
It is. Wow.
So
Amy, if yeah,
imagine, just imagine.
I want to ask this question because I know that it's not easy. For like, I want you to explain the difference, or if I have never had internal validation and all
Mm,
of my worthiness is coming from the outside world.
okay.
If I do not know how to be calm in a storm, if I am swept away by noise, if I don't know how to be, I don't know. The best example for me is like marriage. There's people that work 100 times to be appreciated by their spouse. And I want people to understand, maybe I will share my story, that before I got married, I always believed that I didn't have to work so hard for someone to want to be with me because I felt like I was the gold. I felt like I was the prize. And so I just wanted someone who saw that, and I didn't need to convince them. And so as
Mhm.
I went through life, I realized those men were not coming through. And I was like, okay, but I don't like this. And my friends got married, whoever showed up, and I was like, really? Like, do you guys want this? And then they started getting divorced. And then I got to 30 and they started saying, so what is the plan? Where is the man? And I'm like, I actually haven't seen him. And one of my friends posed the question, like, so what kind of magical man are you waiting for? And I'm like, oh, that's a good question because I don't know. And so I started writing down everything I wanted in a man and everything I didn't want. And
Mhm.
I got 1 page and 2 pages and 3 pages, and I think they became like 5. And my best friend visits and she's like, what is this? And I'm like, it's a husband shopping list. And she looks, she turns the page, she's like, what's happening to you? Like, which man is going to have, I don't know how many were they, 200? Which man is going to have 200 traits?
Yes.
Like, are you kidding me? And I go, you're right. No man will. So this is my list to become. I get those things and I seriously start becoming each one of them. I
Mm.
become 34 and I become 35 and I become 40. And my friends are like, still reading the list? And I'm like, yes, still becoming the list.
Yes.
And every time I meet them, everyone is complaining about their spouse. And I'm like, I don't know that you're in a better place. So I will just keep becoming my list. And then
Mhm.
one day I write a story on Facebook about a point where I was at rock bottom. Like, I couldn't afford toilet paper. So I spent
Mm.
15 minutes in a supermarket looking for a toilet paper that was cents below, like like the cheapest toilet paper. And I shared this story on my Facebook profile and I said, if you think you've reached rock bottom, you haven't, because this is my story. My husband now sees that and goes, that's my dream girl. Within no time, he leaves the UK, he comes to Uganda. 12 months
Mm.
later, we get married. But I can assure you that that man was everything on this list and then some more. And I think that this is what has caused, this is what has made this marriage no effort, or what is the word? Like, I don't have to do anything to prove to him that I am worthy, or I am like, I've even never like, I don't know. We didn't even do like dates. We just met on Zoom and just talked, and then he was here. The point I'm trying to make is there is a point where you don't have to do nothing to get everything. But if a woman is listening and they've never seen that, they've never experienced that, they don't know because they've been chasing people and chasing love and chasing everything. How can you help them to see that Because for me, I think that's the way I can explain it. Where you just be, and people love you anyway for that, and they come to you and they adore you, and you get everything, and you don't have to do anything to prove it. I don't know if it makes sense, really.
Yes, it absolutely makes sense. I absolutely love your stories. Thank you. Thank you for sharing such a profound, intimate space, for your own journey. And that is so beautiful. So something very imperative about the magic that you shared in your story is when that person was not out there, you went inward and said, wait a minute, if these are all of the traits that I want in a partner, that I desire in a partner, you first identified your desire. So that's that first discovery that we talked about. What is it that I want so badly? But then once you've discovered that desire, if you're not being that person, you're not going to attract that person either. So you can't say I'm going to be miserable and upset and lonely and sad, but yet I want Prince Charming to come and be attracted to me, right? So very similar to you, you knew, wait a minute, all of these desires are great, but if I'm not those things, how am I going to attract that individual? So whether it's a partner, whether it's financial, whether it's the dreams in your life that you want, first we have to identify what they are, because that's our map, that's our focus, that's where the emotion is attached. And so for those people that don't have connection to that, that's the first space. You've got to go deep inward, not into the external world, but inward, to uncover what those desires may be in whatever area of life that they are for you, whether it is connection, whether it's fixing a relationship that might be tumultuous for years, whether it's a certain position that you're seeking in life, whether it's, financially where you want to be. When we go inward and work on ourselves first, then it becomes natural. Then it becomes to the point that we're programming our subconscious for that sought desire. And when we put that vibration out there, again, everything is energy. So if we're pouring that vibration into the universe, then what we put out there, we get back. That's the law of attraction. We all know that that exists. The law of attraction is not saying, hey, I want $1 million, give it to me. It says, I see myself having that $1 million. I see myself living that life. I see myself with that partner. I see that myself in those spaces, and raising our vibration to be that person then is what attracts it to us. And so simple clarification of these profound truths. Of going inward. It's an inward journey. We've got to remove the external world. And when we go inward, we will attract what we're seeking. We will vibrate. We will draw in. We will be encircled by those things that our greatest desires are being held as.
Amy, I want to take the same point and go to the entrepreneurs, and I want you to take a minute to explain how someone can be a match for something. Because I see a lot of people who want client X, but yet they want client Y. And so there is this saying that, oh, you're not an energetic match for that person, but it's gotten too cliche that I'm a bit angry with it. What is the most practical, simple way we can get someone to understand that they need to expand their capacity to receive the thing they are asking for, business-wise, like clients who are a match and all of those things? Like, what can you say to expansion to help someone right now who needs it and doesn't know? And they're like, clients are not coming, people are not buying, but the reason really is that you haven't become a match for that person, but I don't know how to explain to the person. So can you help me and kind of get someone to hold that and go, oh my God, that's my issue. I need to probably go there and be like that.
Absolutely. So as an entrepreneur, again, alignment is the key. Like we talked about authenticity as an individual, alignment is a key for our entrepreneurships. So if we are not attracting a certain client that we so desire, we've got to go back to the beginning of what is my story? Who am I? Because I can only speak to my greatest existence, my capacity to go there. So if there is something greater than who I am, then I need to be that person in order to bring that person in. And many times as entrepreneurs, we feel a defeat, and it has nothing to do with the fact that who we are, it's our marketing language. It's how we are attracting that person. And I'm not a believer of niches. The only time you use a niche is when you have a campaign that you have a target audience. As who I am, I have multifaceted campaigns that I have done. Again, I've worked with corporate top executives. I have worked with small nonprofit organizations. I've worked with schools. I've worked with individuals. I've worked with, billionaires that are absolutely miserable, even though they have everything. And every time, no matter what any of those people are, going back into your map of who am I? What experiences have I been through in life? What lessons did them? And how do I take that and create very simple pillars that frame my content for me to empower that client that I'm seeking? But if it's not aligned, it will be very short-lived. If it's not aligned, you might make, 7, 8 figures from a certain campaign, but it's not something that will become duplicatable because it's not you. So if it's not authentically aligned to who you are or a person of you that you want to become, then it might be a success, but it won't be something that you will be able to really capitalize and optimize on or create a legacy from, because the purpose and passion is not connected to what your solution is.
I want to touch that as well, because there's a lot of business owners that start a business for profit. But then a business for profit, then later on, you want to get passion from it, or you want to get purpose from it. So help me understand, or help someone who is very stuck because of that, understand the importance of creating a business that is aligned to your purpose, because there's a lot of advice around what's the best opportunity right now. Okay. But how far can you go with that? Or how many years does that business have to? Like, I want you to explain to the listener why it's very important starting out to create in alignment, because I never got this lesson when I needed it. And I wish for the person who is listening to get it, because if you don't get it, you end up like Prima.
Yeah. Which isn't a terrible thing.
It isn't a terrible thing until you spend 10 years and fail, and you're like, man, there must be like a mark of failing on my head.
I understand that. And that is that inner dialogue that we talked about. But yes, so there are people that very much so their purpose and their passion is profit, Prima. And that's okay. If that's your purpose and passion, by all means, create a company, let it thrive for 3 or 4 years, and then sell the company. If that's your jam and that's what you get so excited about, and it drives you, just simply assure that indeed you're doing it because it's your passion and not simply for profit, because then you will end up that gentleman that's a 9-figure maker and comes to me and goes, Amy, I've never made 9 figures. So where
Mm.
you said before, wait a minute, I'm trying to attract that client, but yet I've never been in that space. I'm not going to say never because there's always tomorrow, but in my current space, I have not made 9 figures. So
Mm.
why would he come to me as a coach? Because it wasn't about the 9 figures.
Mm.
True issue was that he was miserable. He had lost his family life. He had lost his relationships because his purpose wasn't in profit. His
Mm.
purpose truly was in connection and quality of life, but because his consumption was on profit, he lost the things that mattered most to him. So, again, coming back to ourselves and doing that inner journey, that if it is that you continue to find that you're sabotaging what you think is your purpose, there's probably time to reevaluate who you are, do a mapping, which I offer a couple of different things in my platform because of what you just said. Because entrepreneurs get so far in and they're like, well, I have a back office and I have a funnel and I have a this and I have an ebook and I have a program and I have all of these magical things that I've created. And then I go, okay, well, what is your mission statement? What are your values? How does it connect to your personal stories? How are you taking your qualities and your experience and your authority in your own experience and giving that to your clients? And they go, huh? What's that? And then we go back and we have to touch it again. So if we create a map, first and foremost, of who we are, how we show up in life, the things that make us who, we've come to in our greatest version, it's that we have authority in. And so in my platform, I do a self-mapping, which is that personal discover we talked about. Why have we gone through the things we've gone through? Why do we attract the things that we want? What things do we want so we know what's next? Where have I been and where do I want to get to? And what makes me everything in between? And then I have a service-based scaled on top of that, where we go from self to service. And then that's the business. That's the entrepreneur. How do I take all of who I am now and create a business out of it? How do I create a service out of it or a sale, a specific item? How do I become my brand? Is the service. And then the top layer is scaling. Okay, now I've got this business and I'm doing well and I'm at this point, but how do I continue growing and expanding? How do I take the nature of each of those elements where we talked about building bricks, building fortresses, getting to higher versions of ourselves? How do we now scale from that point and continue in our expansion? Because our first idea only lasts so long. So then how do we take the next best versions of who we are and implement that in the service and authority then that we offer? And those are some of the things that missing elements that I knew as an entrepreneur that I uncovered that I wish somebody would have been able to give to me that I had to create because it wasn't there otherwise.
So, Amy, someone is listening now and going, are these things even possible? Do you want to touch on some of the transformations or jumps or experiences that people have had, or would you rather keep that private?
No, absolutely. I'm always open to that without going into specific stories. I can tell just generally because I believe that the audience will attach to them. If you've ever been in a space where you've felt, you know what, I'm doing pretty darn good for myself, but man, I sure wish I had somebody to share it with. I'm really good at what I do, but when is that partner going to come along, Prima? When is that husband going to come along? 34 years old, 35 years old, getting up there, right? Usually it's because the inner work hasn't been done. Again, there's a lot of external gratification and approval. And so the transformation comes in going into that inner journey, and sometimes even just small tweaks and refinements that it is that then all of a sudden that partner shows up because you've transformed yourself and are now attracting it. Similar to jobs. I've been an employee for years and years and years, and man, my deepest dream is to do this. I just can't give myself permission to do it. Oh, Amy, how do you help me get to that point? Okay, well, we do the self mapping and then we go into the service mapping and we figure out how to turn you into your brand. How do we make that sticky and magnetic and yummy, and so that the rest of the world wants to know how Prima does what Prima does? Like, how do we make that out there? And we go through those simple mappings, and all of a sudden somebody comes to me and goes, "Hey, Prima, would you put me on your podcast? Because every other podcast I've been on doesn't give me the outcome that I'm seeing your clients have." And you go, "Wow, I would have never, like, you want to be on my podcast?" Well, it's because we set it up properly, right? And so then a third example I would give is, again, corporate America. Executive that's like, "Yeah, I've been married for 30 years. We're still married. Not a lot of happiness there, but we're still married. It's very professional. My kids have moved on, and, I don't really have great relationships with them. I make good money. I mean, we do traveling every now and then, but man, I just want to be happy. I just want joy and fulfillment." So we go in and do a little bit of work and a little bit of release and a couple subtle shifts in their life. And all of a sudden, transformationally, their kids want to spend time with them. They want to have these conversations with them. The next trip that he or she invites their spouse to, all of a sudden, there's pictures that come home and smiles on faces and lights on faces because the focus has shifted. And so transformation comes in whatever way that is desired by my clients. They tell me what they want, and we map out how to get them there. But we do it through simplification of all of the things that are currently getting in the way, release of the sabotages and the hurdles that seem to prevent them from giving themselves permission, letting go and understanding why there's feelings that are still from their childhood that might be limiting them from loving themselves enough to be able to then love their loved ones. And when we make those subtle shifts, it's amazing the natural, organic living that gets opened up to them because they gave themselves permission to be themselves first. They are worthy. They are enough.
Permission to look on the inside. Amy, if you had to distill down, unleash your infinite potential and embody your effortless living in the one thing that had to shift for you to get the food, what had to shift? If you had to go and kind of get a through line of, I believe this is the one, I don't know if there's one or something, but like, what's the through line of what had to shift about Amy for her to, I don't even know if you've unleashed your infinite potential, because I think we're still going and still going, but to be where you are, where you can hold space for other human beings, what had to shift?
I had to give myself permission to matter. I am really, really good at taking care of everybody else. But to look in the mirror and say, "Amy, you are important." It's not by happenstance that my name is spelled AMI. I found out when I was in my early 20s a story that my mother shared from my birth. And she said, "Amy, when you were born, cesarean, so they had to cut her open in order to take me out and lifted me over the blind, the medical blind, and my dad was standing with her. They lifted me over that blind and I wasn't crying. I had great big chocolate marble, eyes with these beautiful dimples at birth. And they lifted me over that curtain and my mother said, 'Chet,' which is my dad, 'Chet, she's the light. She's the light.'" Now, the doctor had told my mom that I would be her last child, that because she had had 2 cesareans prior, that she couldn't have any more children after me. And so there was a lot of torment in her head and her heart because she really believed that there were more. And so when I was given to her, she said, Chet, her name needs to be Amy, A-M-I, for 2 reasons. The eyes and the light that I had was a friend to all. And in that friend to all, it's also our greatest existence, which, without being blasphemous, I am, is the most profound sentence in our existence. It's in all religious books. It's in spirituality. I am. It's the basic of life. But in order to protect that, they switched the letters around and called me Amy.
Wow.
So in that, it took me years and stories and failures and hurts and aches and pains to really know who Amy is. And to look myself in the mirror after something of going, okay, an 18-year divorce and 8 beautiful children and a religion that blackballed me because of their understandings or judgments of who they made me out to be based on that decision, and losing thousands and thousands of people that looked up to me, all because of humanness, and being mad and vengeful and angry and rage just filling my body, of wanting to attack and be mad and angry for the rest of forever. And then pausing long enough to look in the mirror and go, no, none of that at all. I am light. I am love. I am bigger than this. My purpose is greater than the darkness that's seeking to destroy me. And it was that moment for me.
Allowing
That
yourself to
path did
matter.
not find me. Yeah. That it had to come to love. It had to come to that inner journey, that inner connection to my higher power. And it all starts and ends there.
Amy, I want you to take us in the metaphor. Is it the metaphor? I want you to take us in your back end. And I want you to tell us, if we were looking to dive in, well, like, I love this woman, she's the woman to take me to my next level. If we are looking to dive in, what are the containers you have going that we can see ourselves in your world, and how should we get to start?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I have a complimentary discovery and design call. It takes about 45 minutes because we do go deep. And so in that, I'll ask questions to help figure out where you are, where you want to go, and everything kind of in between, at least a tip of the iceberg. So I have that complimentary call that I offer. And through that call, based on all of the other containers that I offer, I'm able to say to you, this is what I would recommend first, based on where you are. Or this is, maybe you're already at the point that you're doing spectacular and you only need a couple small tweaks, and you're ready for my VIP 12-week program, where it's one-on-one. We go nitty gritty and we just dive in and refine those tiny little things that we need to allow you to amplify your greatest existence. So I have something as small or as short as my mapping systems that I talked to you about, which are self, service or brand, what you do, and then scaling. Those are 3-hour sessions that we create maps for you in the different levels of who you are. And then my next shortest version is a 12-day teaser to basically help people to create a 30-day goal, the next best big goal, that we can do it within 12 days by breaking down the elements of where you're at entrepreneurially. Sometimes in the 12-day teaser, we have to go backwards and go to the self-mapping if people aren't in the space that they have the necessary elements. But most times, depending on where individuals are, we can jump into that 12-day teaser. And then from there, I do have group programs as well as the VIP programs in the 12-week. most transformation, if we're going to change who you are, we could do some motivational stuff and that's great, but then you're going to have to come back and I'm going to have to feed you again in 60 to 90 days. That's the nature of the human mind. And so I and my ecosystem believe in empowering individuals, teaching them the skill sets and the ability. Instead of handing them fish, I teach them how to fish. And so that's why that 12 weeks is necessary for the full understanding of that empowerment. However, most times within 3 to 4 weeks of that program that I offer, whether it's group, whether it's corporate, whether it's VIP, within 3 to 4 weeks, people are seeing significant results for the things that we get started on. And so that allows the 12 weeks to be even more fun, because by the time they get to the end of the 12 weeks, they're going to need a telescope to look backwards at the person that they were before we got started. And so that's the beauty and the fun and the magnificence in it. And it's very fun because I can go into corporations and do it, work with the executives, trickle down. I go into nonprofit organizations to create unity and synchronicity in their process. I go into school systems. I mean, I've talked to thousands before, and I've talked to a room of 3 or 4 and even one-on-one. So the beauty of what I offer, because I'm focused on our being, I'm not limited to any container or group or expectation. And so that's the fun part of being able to create that custom system, whatever it is. And I can go specifically more into detail, but that gives a general understanding of the bandwidth that I can give.
I love that, because now we can begin to see ourselves in one container or the other, and the ultimate path is to get on that discovery call and see which one is the best. If you're listening to this podcast, if Amy is your person, because the way this podcast is designed is you will receive the answer. Like, you will know in your soul if this is your expert or not. So if you're feeling that full body yes about Amy, there will be a link, first of all, pinned to the comment section that gets you to a discovery call. Or if you don't see it there, just check in the show notes. But usually there will be a pinned comment. Go to the discovery call and kind of have a chat with Amy about where you're at, where you're going, and how we can tap into that expansion or that expansiveness of your next level.
Amen.
As always, the biggest thing you can do for me is this. The work on my life is I am an interpreter for the soul. What that means is I distill messages from experts into practical words that the world understands. Amy's gift is what you have heard, you have received, you have experienced. And your part in this is you are the transporter of the message. So again, I want you to look in your phone. I want you to look in your spaces. And I want you to get one human being that you believe that if they were in the hands of Amy, their life would be altered. Just one person. And I want you to go to their private space and say, hey, I heard about this person. I watched this interview and I thought about you. And I want you to drop it in their space and give them the chance to literally alter their life, because that is why this podcast exists. Amy wouldn't be here if there wasn't a soul crying for her help. She wouldn't have made it. She wouldn't have shown up. Something would have crashed. She wouldn't be here. The fact that she's here is proof that there is someone out in the world that is crying for what her gift is. And the fact that you're listening is proof to me that you are the vessel for this message. So pause and honor the request that is on your heart, which is, who can you bless with this message? That's ultimately the biggest thing you can do to reward this podcast if it's giving value to you. But of course, as always, be sure to grab your app, subscribe, review, rate, comment, whatever the app allows you to do is all done as a blessing to the podcast. Amy, we're winding up and we are relying on you to feed us with your parting words so we can keep them close to our hearts.
Absolutely. First and foremost, Prima, thank you. Thank you for the woman that you show up as every day. Thank you for your love for humanity, to be different than it is and to really, truly embrace its greatest purpose. And thank you for pushing through the terror barriers, the doubts in your mind and the external world that tries to defeat your powerful work. Because I see you, I hear you, and I celebrate you for the work that you do. Thank you for having me in this space. And for those that are listening, that are seeking dynamic awareness and consciousness of that beautiful magic inside of you, remember that the only thing required is to give permission to you and priority to you. You are important, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. And you are the only person necessary to make that possible.
And my last words for you will be the same words Amy gave us, which is the greatest gift you can give yourself is give yourself permission to matter because you do.
Amen.
I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you very soon with yet another human being that is using their gifts for good. Thanks, Amy, for pouring into us, for being on the podcast. We can't take your time for granted. We can't take your expertise for granted. But most of all, we cannot take for granted all the work that has happened behind the scenes for you to be this fluid on the stage. We see the work behind the scenes, the work that we didn't see prior to this point. So we celebrate you for all of it, including the work that we didn't get to see. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful day, my people. That is it, my friend. To listen to more exclusive interviews like this one, simply go to the world's best kept secret podcast.com and select interviews based on preferred topic.